I got a little bit of an update on the Bel Air. There's a possibility that I may get a much bigger, badder engine in that car. Whoops. Let me unlock my tailgate. That right there is a 30 overbore 010 high nickel 4-bolt main block. Those were used in trucks, in police cars, and all kinds of other stuff in the 70s, or mid to late 70s, early to mid 70s, something like that. Not sure exactly what year this is, but my uncle has a 71 Corvette that he's had since 1978. This motor he had in that car in the 80s, I think. I think he said he put it in around 83, 84, and he ran it up until about 87, pulled it out because it was burning a lot of oil, and he thought it needed rings. It turns out the heads that were on it, which were 202 angle plug Fuelie heads, ended up being junk. The valve guides were cracked. They had already been knurled once or twice. The valves were loose, and the heads weren't worth rebuilding, so he just had the motors completely stripped down. They found out the heads were wrong, and it's been sitting since about 1988, wrapped in a plastic bag. For a lot of those years, it was in my grandmother's garage. Then he took it home about 10 years ago and decided he wanted to put a 454 back in his car. So he has a crate 454 in his Corvette now, and this has been sitting since, I don't know, it's been sitting at least 10 or 12 years in his garage. Now, the reason this engine would be wild in my car, I mean, it's kind of neat. He gave me these cast aluminum Corvette valve covers, and the funny thing was, like, I had been looking at all these parts in my grandmother's garage my entire childhood, because his Corvette was parked from, again, about 1987, 88, all the way up into the 2000s. Not exactly sure what year, 2004, 2007 or something like that, when he finally took it home. So this engine block had been sitting for a long time. If you guys go way back and watch my old videos with my C10, I had actually looked at buying this block way back when I had my C10 in like 2003, 2004, and I wanted to put this block in my truck. I ended up getting an identical block. I had this 3970010 block in my C10 in those videos, but the parts that he had in this motor are really good. These are forged 11-to-1 pop-up pistons, 30 over. They're TRW. So the part number on the box, I think, for these is correct. So it's an L2304030. And the box, nope, this part number is wrong. So not the right parts in this box, but they're an L23040 30 over piston. Like I said, these are about a 11-to-1 or 11.5-to-1 piston with a moderate head, so like a 68 cc head, something like that. You would get about a, high 10s, low 11 compression. So all the pistons are there. They're all numbered, so they're in good shape. Let me pop my tonneau cover back and show you the rest of the stuff I got with this. Now, the thing was, he had this sitting again since late 80s, and he didn't really know what he was going to do with this block. So you can see there's a little tiny bit of surface rust in the cylinder. It literally almost comes off just with my fingers. I don't think there's going to be any issues with this motor. There's no pitting or anything like that. And you can still see some of the cross hatching in the cylinders. There's no wear on any of the piston skirts. He said he only ran the motor for 3 or 4 years before he took it apart, and it had been completely rebuilt when he put it in his car. There's no wear on the piston skirts at all. Just a bunch of random parts. Because these valve covers don't have breathers in them, you need the old style intake with this filler tube in the front of the intake with the PCV valve in the filler tube. So that's good that I have that. I actually have a wind accelerator intake that I can mount that breather in if I do decide to use this engine. All the connecting rods are here, and I have a buddy that owns a machine shop, and I showed him pictures of all this stuff. These are factory GM rods. He said he wasn't exactly sure what they were. It does say GM down here on the bottom of the cap. and it says like 349 on the other side. Again, all of these have numbers on them, so you can see there stamped there's a number 2. All of the caps are numbered as well, so I have all the caps numbered to the connecting rods. These will probably need to get sandblasted or bead blasted just to get that little bit of surface rust off. Honestly, it probably wouldn't be an issue to run it like that, but you don't ever want to put any rust inside your engine. Now, coming to the main caps, again, it's a 4-bolt main, and I don't know too much about what part numbers are good, but again, my buddy that owns the machine shop, I sent him the part number off these, which is a 2482. He said these are machined steel main caps. He said these are the best ones that GM ever put in a factory engine. And when I showed him the picture of this, he said, "You lucky dog, you got a great engine." So these are the high strength steel machined main caps. Again, I got all of those in here as well. They're all numbered. So there's number 2. This one says number 3. This one says number 4. And then of course the rear main cap and the front cap. So I got all the original caps from this motor. The bolts and all that stuff, obviously I'd replace. He gave me a camshaft and lifters, but I'm not going to use those. I don't know what the camshaft is. There's not really any numbers on it. There's only a couple numbers. I think it says GM stamped in one location on it. And obviously the timing chain and stuff like that, even though it's a double roller and it probably doesn't have any wear in it, I'm not going to reuse it. I'll just keep it as spare parts in case I ever need one. But I mean, if there's any indication on how little mileage this motor had on it, I mean, the chain is still relatively shiny. I doubt it ever got any wear in it. Again, I mean, if he had this thing for 3 years and he drove it a couple thousand miles, that was basically all he did. Now, one other good piece, which is still in the front of my truck, is the crankshaft. This is a forged cast iron GM crankshaft, and the journals are in relatively good shape. As far as I can tell, it might need polishing. Hopefully they won't need to get turned, but if they do, I know there's low enough miles on this crank that I can get it turned and put oversized bearings on it. So that's another good part to this engine. And this came out of a stick, so I mean, it has a pilot bearing in there, which obviously I'd replace anyway. But there you have a short block high nickel 350 4-bolt main with all kinds of good parts that I got for nothing. My uncle had it sitting for so long. He said he just wanted to clean his garage out. The 454 that's in his vet now, he said he wants to pull it out and have some work done to it, cam and some other things to make it a little bit more horsepower. I think he said it was around 420 horse, and he wants to get it up to about 500 horse. The other thing he gave me is a complete Mr. Gasket 4-speed Pro shifter, which I'm not sure I'm going to use this in my car because, as I show you in a second, I did just get my shifter and everything figured out in the Bel Air, but it's another option I have. I mean, this is a short, stubby shifter, so if I was going to use this, again, I'd probably have to cut it and bend it and extend it a little bit, or just drill 2 holes in this stub shaft here, and then I can put any handle I want on there. So, but that's the shifter. Let's go take a look at what I did to the shifter that's in the car. The last video I had about the car, I was having issues trying to figure out how to get the shifter and everything set in here. Well, I finally bit the bullet and just decided to go ahead and cut the shifter for the 57 to make it work. So last week, I took the whole shifter out of the car. I cut the bottom of the shifter where it came out that way and went up for the old shifter. I cut the bottom off, I ground everything nice and flat, and I actually welded a stub shaft. And of course, I put the boot on so you can't see it, but I welded a stub shaft on the bottom and drilled 2 holes in it. Then the long shift handle that I had a pretty extreme bend on the end of it, so the handle came back at a very extreme angle way back here, and it was still too low to use. So I cut the bend off of the long shifter, flipped the piece of metal around, and welded it back together so it's pretty much straight. And yes, my welds are hideous, but you know what? It's a hot rod. Nobody cares, and if they do, it's not their car, so I don't care. So I got the shifter all back together, and then I couldn't find a shift knob I wanted that would actually fit. So I ended up taking the Long brand shift knob that was on here and painting it metallic blue, and then putting about 4 coats of clear coat on it, and I let it sit for a week to dry. So let me pop the lights on here so you can see how brilliant it looks. So now I have my sparkly shift knob. Pretty stinking nice. Honestly, I don't think I could have bought one that looked this nice. That's Rust-Oleum Cobalt Blue Metallic with, again, 4 coats of clear on it. Pretty much matches my steering wheel, even though the metal flake on the shifter is a little bit finer, but the shade of blue is almost exactly the same between the two. And now, look how good the shifter is here. So this is reverse, and I'm about 4 or 5 inches from the steering wheel right now. That's reverse, first, second, third, and fourth. And I'm not having to reach for any one of those gears. This is exactly how I wanted the shifter to be set up, and it works perfect. So the shifter's now fixed where I want it, and again, yes, the welds look kind of crummy. They're not too bad. I'll probably end up taking this back out and grinding them down just to smooth them out. Maybe tape off here and paint the bottom of this black to make all that stuff look better. But it is what it is for now. And then the other thing I started doing, this reflective tape. This is actually adhesive-backed roofing flashing. So it's a roll that you get that's 6 inches wide and 25 feet long, and it has like a tar and butyl rubber backing on it. And you just cut it to length, you peel the backing off, and then you stick it on the floor, and it adheres itself to the floor. It's basically the same thing as Fat Mat or any of those other sound deadener products, or I should say it's more like the cheap sound deadener products that have like a tar or an asphalt backing with butyl rubber kind of impregnated in it. So that's what I've started doing in the front of the car, and it really serves 2 purposes. Yes, it will cut down on noise a little bit. I'm not so much worried about noise. It'll cut down on heat, which is always good, and it covers up the floor. So when I had my 81 Cutlass, I did something similar to this, but I had spent like a week sanding down and painting the entire floor in that car with Rust-Oleum. And this car, the floor is not too bad in it where I did all the repairs. Because this has an asphalt and butyl rubber backing, I figured it's probably good enough to just stick this stuff on top of the welds. It'll probably do about the same type of job sealing the floor as paint. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I am wrong, but that's what I did. So the whole floor in this car is going to get covered in this stuff. I may end up putting a carpet in this eventually. It would be pretty simple to put a carpet in, except for the fact that I welded all my seat brackets to the floor. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I do, I'll probably, just trim around all the seat brackets and put the carpet on both sides. Or I may just leave the floor the way it is and get either a flat piece of carpet to do the front of the car, or just put floor mats in it. I mean, it doesn't have to be pretty. I don't want to spend a fortune on this car getting everything back to like original spec. I took the vent shades off of all the windows on the doors because they kind of looked stupid. And also the other day I started going through all the chrome trim I have for this car and figuring out what pieces I had and if I needed any pieces. And then I started going through and grinding all of the crummy Bondo and paint and welds off of the passenger side of the car. And I started realizing the bodywork on this car is even worse than I thought. This whole row is all pinholes and things like that from, crummy rust. So again, to the point of it's not really worth doing too much amazing bodywork on this car because it does have a lot of rust and it's been fixed really poorly a lot of times. So what I'm going to plan on doing is taking a DA and sanding down the Bondo to get it as smooth as I can, painting the car, and then putting on all of the trim, which will cover up a lot of the crappy bodywork and some of the rust that's still there. So that's my plan, and I'll get to it as much as I can. I think I'm probably going to paint the car this teal color just because It covers really well. It covers like all the crummy bodywork that was on this. Obviously you can still see some of the wavy stuff and things like that, but it covers a lot of the bodywork really well, and it's really shiny. And that was like a quick 30-second spray paint job. So my plan is the roof of the car, I'm gonna paint with Rust-Oleum white, just regular white paint. I'll probably use my spray gun from Harbor Freight. I'm just gonna mask all the chrome off on the windows and mask the, you know, from here down, this chrome down on the car, and then paint the roof a couple of good coats of white, let it harden for like a week, then tape off the top of the car and paint the whole bottom of the car this teal color, which, let's see, I think it's called Lagoon, yeah, Gloss Lagoon. So this is the color the car is going to be, and yes, I'm painting it with Rust-Oleum. I don't have the patience for real body work. I don't have the garage to do really good paint, and like I've said a million times, the bodywork on this car is so bad, it doesn't deserve a real paint job, so it's just going to get painted one color. It's going to be what it's going to be. I'm going to take the front grille off again. That I'm going to paint Rust-Oleum aluminum, because it kind of has like a really nice metallic in it. If you paint it silver or you paint it like chrome, it never looks good. I don't like it flat black, so I really want it to be all silver. I have the teeth that go in the front grille already painted that aluminum color, and I'll paint the headlight trim rings that same color as well. So the whole nose of the car will be silver. For a front bumper, I'm still looking at getting a piece of either like 2-inch DOM or something like that, and doing what the gassers had, just coming straight off the sides of the frame out to about here on the front of the car. So I'll just make some extensions that come out like a foot or 18 inches, however long it takes me to get out to the front of the car. And then I'm gonna have a bar that's welded in between two pieces coming out of the frame, just to give me the center section of the bumper. Hopefully I'll be able to get a sticker like that. I know sometimes if you don't have a full bumper that wraps around the corners of the car, they'll give you a hassle, but honestly, the shop that I get an inspection sticker from, the last time I talked to the guy, he said as long as it has mufflers on the car and it doesn't look like it's all, you know, falling apart and haggard, he'll be fine. So I'm not too worried about it. Again, it's a 53. There's not a whole lot of safety rules when it comes to a car this old. They didn't have seat belts. They didn't have a lot of the safety features. So, I mean, things that I've done to the car to stiffen up the frame, put better cross members under the transmissions and stuff like that are going to make a big difference. So I will get to doing some more work on this soon, and I will be sure to show you that in a video.